The human brain. It serves as a complex roadmap of the world we experience. It gives directions to our thoughts and perceptions so we arrive at our destination safely and efficiently. But people with neurological brain disorders like schizophrenia or manic depression have been given a map with roads that don't meet where they should, bridges that are missing, and routes that lead to nowhere. If you met a fellow traveler misguided by his map, would you judge him and leave him stranded, or would you get out your map and help him find his way?
Hi there, I'm Joe Tyler. Are you stressed out, wigged out, freaked out, feeling anxious, angry, or depressed? Want to know how people with real mental health problems learn to cope? Keep it right here and get the latest word from experts in the field like me, Joseph Tyler, a consumer services assistant, a peer-to-peer class leader, a NAMI Nevada president, a support group leader, a speaker for the cause for mental health, as well as a state of Nevada employee. Here on Erasing the Stigma, we take you, the viewer, into the brain's biochemistry, that is mental illness, and back to reality safely. Here on Erasing the Stigma, we find hope for people whose lives have become unmanageable. So stay with us for the next half an hour as we erase the stigma for people with brain disorders.
I didn't want people to laugh and make fun of me because depression is a disease that, for some unknown reason, is extremely scary to our society.
But unfortunately, people were too afraid to talk about it, just like people were too afraid to discuss the fact that they even had symptoms for this illness. And just like there are people who are too afraid to discuss the fact that, you know what, I know there's something wrong. I know there's something that's not right. I need help.
The social health of a state is so critical to having it be a wonderful place to live, to raise your children, and at the same time service those who need servicing in areas so critical as mental health.
How are we going to keep up with population growth?
Well, Joe, first let me tell you it's a pleasure to be on your show. I'm glad that we could take this time to share a few moments on air and talk about mental health in Nevada. It's a very important issue. The question you've asked about how do we keep up with growth in mental health is probably the most important issue that I, as an administrator, can answer. And what we do is, first of all, we have to keep up by making sure that we advocate for support, both privately and publicly, and that we use our resources that we have now as efficiently as possible. Because, you know, populations grow, mental health issues start to expand, and the resources required to address those also must expand as well. So if we can advocate for the support for mental health, both from the public side of things, and that's the legislative branch of government in their issue of funding budgets and putting the right requirements into the legislature, and for us as administrators dealing with the regulatory environment that we have, setting up the requirements, getting that information out to the public about what we can do for them from a healthcare delivery standpoint. I think all of that helps us keep up with not just the growing population, but the growing recognition of mental health issues throughout the public.
We were in a difficult situation, and I thought for the first 4 years we had really proven the point that Nevada was in need of some tender, loving care in terms of the social health of Nevada in many areas. Certainly mental health was one of those, Joe, we all know that, but there were so many other areas, you know, children's checkup, health programs for those uninsured, and for senior citizens, and for those who are less fortunate. And I think the first 4 years we really did the best we could in terms of cutting the budget, rearranging, reprioritizing, and doing privatization, which allowed us to do some great things by taking workers' compensation, which was a huge item, and drafting millions of dollars from our general fund budget to support it, and going further and further into debt with it to almost to the tune of $2 billion. When we privatized that, it gave us some new wind behind our sails to move in the right direction so that we could hopefully focus and privatize other things, but at the same time focus on what we could do as a priority for the mental health, for the general health services of Nevada, because the social health of a state is so critical to having it be a wonderful place to live, to raise your children, and at the same time service those who need servicing in areas so critical as mental health. So,
yeah, it is our most. Yeah. I believe it's the most important, or the toughest disability that anybody, because it knocks out the very computer that allows us to think logical thoughts.
Sure, and you're not always in bed. You don't look sick.
Yeah.
In the eyes of the people who observe you, they say, "Well, what's wrong with you? Why don't you just straighten up what you're doing, or why don't you just do like the rest of us?" But the mind, and through the brain processing and all the electrons that we have in there, it's a very difficult process inside of a human being.
It's no excuse for, like you had said earlier, for people right now to be making choices between putting heat or getting food, or paying for daycare for their child for a week, or getting the medication that they need. What's been incredible about this program is that the majority of people being helped are single mothers who've had to make those tough decisions about whether or not they give something to their child or themselves. I've also done a lot of shows on people who suffer from depression and suffer from bipolar disorders. So it's a brain disorder, but it's been crazy in a sense that it wasn't until I came forward myself and admitted to my own depression. I suffer from clinical depression. It's one of the symptoms from my disease, MS, because, and if you want to go technically about it, because we have so much minuscule swelling when the disease is active in the brain, that causes some chemical mixing, chemical distortions, and that has been proven now to cause depression. One of our primary symptoms across the board with people with MS is depression. But unfortunately, people were too afraid to talk about it, just like people were too afraid to discuss the fact that they even had symptoms for this illness. And just like there are people who are too afraid to discuss the fact that, you know what, I know there's something wrong. I know there's something that's not right. I need help. They're too often ridiculed, too afraid to go and get it. So we talk about that on the show.
I think if you go sit down with a psychiatrist and you're seeking help, and they go, "Look, before we get started, I'm bipolar, I'm clinically depressed," you probably, nice seeing you, and you go back out the door, never once thinking that that's really the person I want to sit down with. And in my research and traveling with a lot of great psychiatrists, this is how I enjoy my depression. You find out there's so many great people are depressed, clinically depressed, bipolar. I mean, some of our greatest
very
CEOs,
creative,
most
creative. CNN owner, Ted Turner. So many people. And so when I started learning about depression and the other mental disorders, I got to thinking, well, the wonderful thing about all of this, and this is the message to the viewer, is that if you're feeling down, unhappy, miserable, can't sleep, you're losing weight, emotionally breaking down, unhappy with every accomplishment in your life, nothing pleases you, nothing satisfies you, and at the same time you're up and down in your decision making, start a project, drop a project, if you basically don't understand why you're not feeling good, my voice says go see your doctor, go see your physician, sit down, go see a friend if you don't want to do that, and sit down with someone and explain to them something's not right. Something's not right. That's what I did. It took me 8 months. That's what I did, and that's what a lot of people do. Go seek help, because here's the wonderful thing about depression. And I always try to put the positive spin on it. There are drugs that make a difference in our lives. Like I said, I took Paxil for a long time, and then 2 years ago, when CR came out, Paxil CR, I switched it because it's a time-release drug, and I feel it works better for me because as the day wears on, it's still releasing, and so I feel really good, and I'm happy that I'm on it. But we have help out there. There's medication. When the doctor looked at me and said, "Terry, you're clinically depressed,"
I was the happiest guy in the world, because that then gave me answers to what was going on in my past through all the therapy, because I went through 3 years of therapy. And so then I said, God, that is so cool. That explains this and this and this and this. And oh, by the way, can you help me here? And he said, oh, yeah, we can help me.
Who did you rely on through those tough times, personally?
Personally, I've got real good family. I think I did probably like Joe, like a lot of our viewers, I pretty much kept it to myself. Because when I walk out of my house and being...
So you isolated a lot, you said...
Yeah, which is a mistake.
Isolated. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. On a personal level, you were touched by mental illness within your own family. What insight have you gained as a result of this, and how can this be extrapolated to Nevada's being rated? I believe we're still rated 4th.
I think Nevada is rated
from the worst, right. 4th from the worst.
And it's a tragedy, because it was my wife's father, and you know, it was one of those very unfortunate things that happened many, many years ago in her life, and you know, but carrying that stigma around, as my family does, especially my wife, is something that I think all of us have to learn to recognize, that there are burdens that are being carried and shouldered by people who have some family member within that you know, area, immediate family, that has had a problem, and that problem has led to the ultimate act, which is taking their own life. So, you know, I think what we learned from all of that is that we've got to learn to not only recognize when a person needs help, but make sure that they understand that they can ask for help without worrying about what the ultimate family member is going to think about them, or worrying about what it's going to cost, or any of those other stigmas that come down with somebody who's suffering from an emotional stress.
There definitely is a stigma with regard to cost, because I know people think you know, healthcare is so astronomical, and you addressed that in your State of the State address, about $4 billion for healthcare, and you're reconstituting the committee to look into that. And
we are, and that was something that we did. We just recently, you know, over the course of the last several months, reorganized and re-put back together the committee that's going to look at healthcare issues in Nevada, and including health, which has to be addressed, the mental health aspect of it as well. And we have about an additional $17 to $22 million now back into the system to help address some of our mental health issues in the state. And that's one of the things that I think many people don't recognize, is when you have an institution out there that can unmask what we oftentimes hide as mental health, either a drug abuse or some other issue. We have to unmask that so that we can look at it and see what it is, because some mental healths are very, very treatable. Can bring that person with a little help, counseling, guidance, and even some medication, and bring them back into the mainstream. They can become working, productive people in our society. And that's what this is all about. That's what our mental health courts are all about. That's what our mental health institutions are all about. It's about taking that person who may seem, well, lost, and bringing them back to where they're in the center of their life, where they can actually be efficient or effective, where they can actually live a more normal life with a little attention, a little treatment, counseling, guidance, and some of the things that cost money up front but pay money down the road, because instead of sitting in a bed, occupying a room, occupying a doctor's time, they're now dealing with their emotions or their mental illness, and they're out working and adapting.
Those of us who are in the public arena must make sure that we've got the ability to service those individuals, because the numbers are increasing every day. A while ago you mentioned some 20 million, and I'm sure it's probably, that's maybe identified. What it's out there that's not identified, where people keep it inside, and they can mask it with maybe better behavior, etc. But it still might be tearing them up inside. So yeah, mental health is so important to all of us, and that's why we kind of cloned the word here in the state of Nevada. Let's take a good look at the social health of Nevada.
Let's take up the issue of, because when I saw you speak at the Service Coordinators Convention in Las Vegas, you talked about how we've given mental health care the biggest rises in expenditure, and mental health medications are a big part of that. And medications are the cornerstone for treatment, as I said at the top of the show. Mental health spending, balance the quality of, how can we balance the quality of care of life with our newer, more effective, atypical, state-of-the-art medications, and get our citizens out of the shadow of life and back into a new start on life? I mean, how do we balance those costs? Because they are so, you know, and big pharma is a big lobby too. I mean, and you know, how do we balance those costs and get enough research dollars? And I mean, that's the issue that I see as a big problem.
Well, I think first of all we have to, as a society, and certainly as a state of Nevada, and then those of us who are elected, and I hope all those who would follow me would have somewhat the same kind of an idea of how important this is. I believe that the first thing you do to offset any major issue that you can identify, and certainly mental health is an issue that we've identified, then you have to look at it in terms of how you can prioritize it, and where does it fall into the category, and how does it get its due service to the allocations of the revenue streams. And certainly you got to recognize that if you don't look at it holistically, and by that I mean to the people who are listening, is you can't just look at it and say, well, we're going to say, here's a person that we've identified with a mental health issue, we'll just prescribe some drugs for them. You need a setting, like I think we've established both at the Deanie Townsend program up here, and the one that we've now established, and the building's almost completed in Southern Nevada and Las Vegas, where we can actually take people there, and it takes us anywhere from 10 to usually the maximum is around 18 days to get them through this transition and to get them converted over to how to use those drugs and the importance of it and to stabilize them. And once you do that, rather than just saying, here's a prescription, go home and take this, you've brought them along, and the transition's been made so that they can go back into life and to work and be our neighbors and our nephews and our nieces and our moms and dads and aunts and uncles, and live a pretty stable life and be a part of that society. And that's what I think we have to show people, that in mental health, if we'll do this economically and from the quality of life, it's important. Quality of life and the surety of life comes first, and then the economics comes second, but they go hand in hand. We can take the quality of life of a person if we can take them through this transition period, stabilize them, and put them into the right programs, and have follow-up programs, and have them to have a place to come. Their quality of life improves. Their family's quality of life improves, which helps everybody. Less depression, less trouble in a family. And then economically, we know that if we can stabilize them and make it consistent, we know that that's much cheaper than having to put them into a facility on a much longer period or a stay than the 18 days or so at the maximum. And so it's very important for us to look at that as, first of all, as a quality of life, and second, as the economics, but they both go hand in hand, and they both are good for a program that needs the support of the people, because you can prove that it's good for everybody, actually. So I think that's what we've been able to do. You mentioned.
The best way I can answer your question is to say, because it's been so many years since I competed, that I just never was satisfied, even when it was great.
That's the way I felt too.
I just never was satisfied.
That's the way I felt too.
And
never
I was
satisfied.
And you know what, Joe? I was always disappointed in the accomplishments because they let me down. They never once filled that void that I needed so desperately filled. And I remember telling my father after two of the Super Bowls, I remember this quote to him: "Dad, this is, where is it?" I said, "Where is it? I thought this was supposed to be the greatest time of my life. This is horrible. I'm miserable." And he says, "You're just tired, son. You're just tired." And I actually got angry. Super Bowls just pissed me off because they were to get me. They were to save me. You know, I was looking to be saved. I wanted to be elevated up and feel good about myself. And then to make things worse, people are calling you stupid and dumb and ridiculing you and tearing you down. And the whole time you've got to deal with all of that, lead a football team. And so that when you do accomplish something, you're so angry with all these people that nothing is going to make you happy. And you do things to anger them deliberately. So it's a nasty disease, which I didn't know I had, but that's how my mind worked. Never satisfied, never happy. We lost the game. I'm sure that I probably said, you know, so what? Who cares? And I'm sure I said, hey, I played well. And that always helped. And then there were times where it just beat you up, just destroyed you. You're just miserable and constant pressure. And if you're sick, you know, if you've got a disease and you don't know it, and you're not getting help for it, can you imagine the struggles? I mean, that's why I tell these people, get help.
That's what's different from me, is because with my schizophrenia, it was pretty obvious. I could fake it for a while, like you could fake your depression for a while. You could get up to do stuff, but I would be so sick. I would be so
schizophrenic.
No.
See,
and I denied it for 6 years.
Did you suspect it?
They told me I had it, but I still denied it.
Yeah.
I mean, by
that's the thing.
The brain disorder knocks out part
Right.
of the brain that helps you to think those logical thoughts.
Yeah.
That I have a disease that needs to be fixed, that can be fixed.
Yeah.
So, it knocks out the logic.
It's very funny, by more people coming forward, more people being willing to discuss it, and the fact that a program like the PPA is available, because there are people who are receiving their antidepressant medication through the PPA. Programs like this are making people less reticent to speak out and ask for help. I think also the fact that there are people like yourself and myself who speak out openly about what we deal with. There are so many other people who walk up to me all the time and say, dude, you know, took a lot of, you know what, because I'm afraid to say it, but I got the same problem. I've had the number of men who are businessmen, people who are upstanding members of this community, who have walked up to me and said, thank you for coming forward, because it made me want to say something to my family. But there's so many of them who are too afraid. Because why? We look at illness in this country as weakness. And unfortunately, people don't understand it. People can be ill and not weak. And unfortunately, those of us that are ill don't want to be looked at as being weak, so we're too afraid to speak. I'm glad that, though, now more information is coming out. There's more medication available. There's more different alternatives that are out there. People just need to know about them. And so, I'm going to keep speaking out about it, and I'm glad that you do, too.
I think one of the misnomers about depression, Joe, is that people think you can't be successful. Now, your happiness is the thing that suffers, but you can be successful in it, and it never had. And in my case, it certainly is not going to steal your personality from you. So, and I think that's one of the reasons when people see me, they go, "Wow, he's this or he's that. How could he possibly?" But it doesn't rob you of that.
All right, thanks.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
My
You gave me
pleasure.
a good
Thanks
time.